So we're back for another episode of the Spectators Kingdom podcast. Another action-packed weekend of football. The Bundesliga and La Liga kicked off this weekend. Barcelona and Bayern Munich, the reigning champions in those respective leagues, both failing to earn wins, and Manchester City and Tottenham, well, history repeated itself. We saw VAR cancel another late winning goal for Manchester City. And, Liverpool looking shaky in their win against Southampton. And United once again failing to beat Wolves. Wolves always showing that how much of a thorn they are against top 6 teams. And I'm here to talk about a lot more stuff that happened over this past weekend. I just want to say thank you to everyone I got a lot of positive reviews after the first podcast. So I'm pretty much going to tell you that I'm going to be doing this I'm going to try doing this at least about once a week. Just, talking about what happened in the weekend of football. I think that, this is a good pace for me to go out every weekend. And I plan on doing this just for the year. Just see how it goes, and then if I like it, then who knows, I might do it again next year. But for now, I'm just testing myself out and seeing how things go. But the second podcast, Spectators Kingdom, once again, thank you to everyone who's been messaging me. I'm new to this, so it's not going to be perfect, but I'm here to talk about the game that I love watching. And so let's just get to it. And like I said, the Bundesliga and La Liga kicked off today. Barcelona faced off against Athletic Bilbao, and then Bayern Munich was facing Hertha Berlin. They were playing around, it was on Friday afternoon. Well, Friday night, obviously in Europe, Friday afternoon for me. I live in Canada, if anyone doesn't know, by the way. So that's why I said, but either way, they're playing around the same time. I was actually more concentrating on the Bayern Munich game. They were hosting Hertha Berlin. I found that game a bit more fascinating to watch on the eye personally. So more of my attention was on that game. And it was Lewandowski scored twice, and Dodi Lukebakio. He was on loan at Watford. I'm not sure if they bought him permanently or not, but anyway, I think they bought him permanently for 20-something mil. But once again, he scored against Bayern. I remember he scored a hat-trick at the Allianz Arena, if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember the club. He was on a different Bundesliga club, I believe, but he scored a hat-trick at the Allianz last season, and then he scored in the return game. So he has a history of scoring against Bayern Munich, and so it wasn't really that surprising to see him on the score sheet. But, the real surprise that day was Barcelona's loss against Athletic Bilbao. A lot of people have been calling for Ernesto Valverde's head before the season began, and, that game pretty much just further intensified those claims. It was a bicycle kick from a 38-year-old grandpa, Aduriz is how you say his name. He scored a bicycle kick. It was a goal to remember, honestly. I mean, what a way to open the season. What a way to open the account with a win against the defending champions. It doesn't get any better than that. So, if we see more of those things, that's just a sign of things to come in those two leagues. A lot of people criticize the Bundesliga and La Liga for maybe being kind of one-sided in the past, especially mainly the Bundesliga. But Dortmund look really strong this season. They've upgraded their defense with the signing of Mats Hummels. They got him back from Bayern. The funny thing is that they sold him to Bayern for around the same price that they bought him back, which just shows you how crazy inflation is. Because he's maybe 32, 33. He's past his best years, but nonetheless, he's still there to help. Because Dortmund's main problem was in defense. So someone like Hummels, who can still play at a top level, who has the experience, is going to be a key signing for them. I saw them in the Super Cup against Bayern. Sancho with the goal and assist that day, he looked brilliant. Paco, and they won the first game, Dortmund. They won 5-1. Paco Alcacer, Marco Reus, Sancho scoring. That front three is just going to carry them. We all saw what they could do last season. but the defense is the main problem. So I'm going to be watching the Bundesliga this season. I'm interested to see how Hummels affects the transformation. He'll be playing. I think Ikanji is going to be starting alongside him. So that's definitely something to keep my eye out on. And both the German Bundesliga and the La Liga already starting off with bang. Real Madrid also picking up a win, and so it's definitely something to keep your eye out for the rest of the season. But now back to the Premier League. The headline game: Manchester City 2, Tottenham 2. Final score is 2-2. Like I said earlier, Manchester City, a late winning goal, once again denied by VAR. That was pretty. The second time in 4 months, man. Like they just can't catch a break against Tottenham. And Man City, in my opinion, were the dominant team. They had more possession. They had a lot more shots, really, any other day, and they snatched that victory from Tottenham. But what I noticed was that De Bruyne was just unbelievable in that game. Like, the way this guy moves into pockets of space is just incredible. Like, for one of the goals, I think Bernardo Silva was on the right and he attracted Danny Rose, and so that freed up space for De Bruyne to move into a pocket of space where Davinson Sanchez wasn't comfortable to mark him, and so all he had to do was send in the ball to I think it was Aguero, and he finished it. And so that was one of the main things I noticed about the game. But De Bruyne, in my opinion, he's the best player in the league now that Eden Hazard is gone. The way this guy just picks balls out of nowhere. He could have even had like a goal himself. He shot it just over the bar. This guy is a world-class player to watch on his day. And honestly, if he was at 100% last season, maybe Man City end up beating Tottenham on aggregate and going into the Champions League final against Liverpool. But that's past already. But with a healthy Kevin De Bruyne, Manchester City fans should be really excited about this season. The amount of depth they have is incredible. Phil Foden's also there. Phil Foden, he had a really good. I don't know if I can say he had a really good U21 tournament, because I only watched for England, right? I only watched the first game, and he had a really good first game. I think it was against France, but that's definitely just Man City have a plethora of talent in that area of the pitch, so that'll definitely be something to look forward to. Tottenham were second best in that day, but the thing is, they took their chances. It was Lucas Moura and Eric Lamela were on the score sheet. Lamela, a goal and an assist. Lamela isn't usually one of the main players you talk about in Tottenham. When you talk about their attack, you think of players like Harry Kane, Son, Eriksen, Dele Alli, Lucas Moura, even on the fringes. You don't really talk about Eric Lamela. He's been there for quite a while now, but he still managed to grab a goal and an assist against Man City at the Etihad. So that's just, he's another player who will be staking his claim for. He's just putting himself into Pochettino's mind. Kyle Walker-Peters, the Spurs right back, he had a pretty good game. It's against Man City, so there was a lot for him to deal with. But now with Spurs selling Kieran Trippier, it looks like he's going to be their main right back, especially now I've heard reports that they're looking to sell Serge Aurier. The European window's obviously open until the end of August, so if they sell Aurier, it just leaves Kyle Walker-Peters in that position, and I felt he had a solid game. In terms of backup options, I actually read an article from The Athletic today, and insider knowledge is that apparently Eric Dyer has been training he's been at Spurs and he's been training as a right back, so don't be surprised to see him playing there. Also, Juan Foyth is also another one who could play there. So Tottenham, they obviously look like they're prepared to give Kyle Walker-Peters a healthy run in the side, and he had a pretty solid game. He's still a young kid. They haven't really replaced Kyle Walker, not Kyle Walker Peters, obviously Kyle Walker, to ever since they sold him to Man City. They haven't really replaced him, so Kyle Walker Peters could be the guy that it looks like Mauricio Pochettino is giving a lot of faith in him, so it looks like he could be the guy for that. But yeah, that's that 2-2 draw. City is obviously, for the past 2 seasons, I believe they've drawn one of their opening 2 or 3 games, so I don't know if I'd say it's a real cause for concern, but yeah, because especially on that day, that was such a harsh, VAR, that was such a harsh decision at the end. It was the right decision, let's be real, it did touch his arm, but as a Man City fan, it's just heartbreaking when that sort of stuff happens against the same team twice in the space of 4 months. They can't seem to catch a break from that. But now on to the questions for this part now. I got a lot of good questions. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to answer all of them. I'll try answering some of them as the season goes on, or on my page. By the way, if you don't follow me on Instagram, follow me. My page is at epl.kingdom. Once again, at epl.kingdom. And pretty much what I do is I post latest news regarding the Premier League. I also post about other leagues every now and then. It's mainly Premier League focused football content, so if you're a diehard Premier League fan, or if you just love English football in general, then follow my page, because every day there's something new for me. I talk about, I post a lot of polls on my stories comparing players, so definitely follow me on Instagram if you haven't already, at epl.kingdom. And now for the first question is, will Arsenal beat Liverpool next weekend? Yeah, that's going to be the headline game for next weekend. I'm actually planning on watching that game at a pub. I won't be doing a podcast next weekend because I'll be watching the game at a pub. And so pretty much what I'm going to do is I'm going to be filming. I'm going to be videoing the pub and just the fans' reactions throughout the game. I don't want to be one of those football stadium vloggers. I'm not trying to be one of those, but I just want to test it out and see how it goes. And so that's why this is I'm not going to be releasing a podcast next weekend, because I will be watching Arsenal versus Liverpool at my local pub, which is it's not far from downtown Toronto. It's actually in Mississauga, maybe 20-minute drive from downtown, so that's where I'll be watching it. And it's an Arsenal pub, so I'll be showing video content as the game goes on and fans' reactions. So, but anyways, will Arsenal beat Liverpool? Well, I don't know. It depends. The thing is, Liverpool haven't really set the season alight so far, if I'm being honest. They started off with a 4-1 victory over Norwich City, and even before they scored their first goals, Norwich were playing really good football. They are unlucky not to score an early goal, but then once Liverpool scored that first goal, Norwich pretty much just took over, and it wasn't hard for them to bang in a third and a fourth, So, but then they came up against Chelsea in the Super Cup, and everyone expected them to sweep Chelsea away, especially after Chelsea got embarrassed 4-0 by United. But for large parts of the game, I felt that Chelsea were the better side, and Kante had an amazing game. He pretty much outran and out-tackled that Liverpool midfield. It finished in a draw, and then they won on penalties, but Chelsea were the better team for large parts of that game. And then Liverpool came down to Southampton at the St. Mary's this past weekend. They didn't play that well either. Before Mane scored the goal, the game was pretty even. You could even make an argument that Southampton deserved to be leading in that game. But Mane has really improved. Every season he's been in the Premier League, he's improved for Liverpool. It's just crazy to see this guy. He's taken over as Liverpool's most important player from Salah, in my opinion. Like the stuff this guy does with the ball, he just that's all he just needed, that bit of space to shoot that goal and to shoot that shot, and it went in the corner. Liverpool took the lead, and that's, you know, when you have a world-class player, that's all you need. You don't even need to be playing well in that day. Just that one moment of individual brilliance was enough to see Liverpool score that early goal, and then they added a second one. And then Adrian, at the end of the game, towards the end of the game, Adrian made a pretty foolish error. He received the back pass, and then I don't know, he had a curious moment where he just kicked it, and it went off. Was it Danny? It was Danny Ings. He went off, and then from what I heard, Danny Ings had another chance late on the game. I didn't catch that moment, but he had another chance later in the game that he could have easily scored. So Liverpool really haven't been playing too well this season, but the thing is, they always turn up for these big games, especially at Anfield. And last season they beat Arsenal 5-1. The season before they scored 4 goals against Arsenal, and then the season before they scored 3. So I guess logic tells you that they're going to score 6. But on a real note, on a serious note, they always show up at Anfield against the big sides, and so that's why I'm saying it's hard to call. Arsenal have won their opening 2 games. They beat Newcastle away and Burnley at home. Those are 2 games where you pretty much expect Arsenal to win. Even though Arsenal have significantly improved this summer, even with the squad of last season, I'd still expect them to win those 2 games. But the Burnley game, there was a clear improvement. Obviously, Dani Ceballos got all the plaudits in that game. He had a world-class performance, 2 assists, 1 off corner, and then, you know, 1 he just passed the ball to Aubameyang, and he did his thing. But just the way this guy just looks so comfortable on the ball, he offers them another dimension. He offers them something different, you know. I think it was Willock, Guendouzi, and Ceballos in that midfield for Arsenal, and they offer something different from Xhaka in that, you know, when they play together, what they do with the ball, they move the ball in a quicker way than Xhaka. I'm not saying that Xhaka isn't going to be needed, because I still think Xhaka will play an important role with Arsenal this season. I still expect, especially because they're in the Europa League, they have to stretch their squad and all that. But it's just that with that trio in the midfield, the way that they move the ball is in a much more quicker and exciting way, and it offers something different and something that can be built upon. And I know Ceballos is probably going to go back to Real Madrid this season after the season's over, because there's no buyout clause in the deal. But it's just really exciting if you're an Arsenal fan to see that there's a lot of progress being made. That midfield, it really has potential to do something special this season. And then Pepe, obviously the record signing, he came on, he did his thing. He kind of struggled at first. At first, he got dispossessed twice and outmuscled early in the first half. Early in his into his game time, but as he grew more confident as it wore on, and he should have had an assist. He would have had an assist if it weren't for really good goalkeeping from Nick Pope. If you don't remember, he fed the ball to Aubameyang, and then he shot it across the keeper, but he somehow saved it. And he looks really good on the ball. He's still a player that he will offer really good dribbling. His pace is something that could cause problems for Liverpool this weekend, and it's going to be a really exciting matchup. I don't think Pepe is going to start against Liverpool. That's kind of a tall order, giving your first start to the new signing against a team like Liverpool. I expect him to come off the bench for that game, but he looks pretty promising, and he's obviously someone who will need to be eased into the squad. David Luiz, the other player, the other signing, he looks immense at that back. Arsenal's back line, it's clear now that Mustafi is obviously not on the plans. He wasn't even named on the bench for their win against Burnley. And that back line that partnership of Socrates and I was almost saying Mustafi, Socrates and David Luiz, that's a partnership that has a lot of experience. They're both over 30, a lot of experience in leadership. And although they didn't look, I'm not going to say they looked perfect against Burnley, but they're both experienced defenders with a lot on their resume. And with that being said, it's a clear improvement for Arsenal to have those two at the back. Callum Chambers is there as well. They actually I could see them possibly shifting to a back three against Liverpool, where they play Socrates, David Luiz, and then either Monreal or Callum Chambers as that third center back, and then Kolasinac and Maitland-Niles as the wing backs. So it's going to be a really exciting game to watch. I hope that it will be a really good contest. And on to the next questions. Thoughts on Watford? What are your thoughts on Watford, Leicester, and Norwich? Okay, I'll start with Watford. I talked about Watford briefly last weekend, but pretty much I just don't think they did. Like I said, I just don't think they really did enough in the transfer window to convince me that they're gonna push on to a higher level. Yeah, they finished 11th in the league. They made it to the FA Cup final. So you'd think the owner would only try making more investments into the club. Yeah, I know they bought Ismaila Sarr. He'll be another player that'll have to be eased in. He just came, and Danny Welbeck as well. He made his debut against Everton. But Javi Garcia is one of those managers who's always positive, and in the press conference against Everton, he just, for some reason, something seemed off about his demeanor. It's going to be a really tough year for Watford. It's obviously they haven't scored in either of their games. It's just Troy Deeney's really going to have to lead this unit, because when you start both games of the season without scoring a goal, that's when pressure starts mounting on you. And their next game, let me check who they're facing next actually. Give me a second. They're playing at home to West Ham, who have also kind of struggled, but at home to West Ham and the way at Newcastle, those are two very winnable games. And I just have a feeling that they have to really get something going. Daniel Lefebvre, who's supposed to be one of their main guys, he needs to start doing more on the ball. And if they really want to improve, then that's what they're gonna have to do. Etienne Capoue as well, and Abdoulaye Doucouré, who they fought so hard to keep on to. I thought I'm surprised that he didn't move clubs. He was also another standout performer for Watford last season. I think there was talk of interest from United and Everton, but nonetheless they held on to him. They just need their star players to perform, and it's 2 games into the season, so I'm not gonna start saying it's doomsday and all that, but those first 2 games, especially the 3-0 loss at home to Brighton, especially that game, when you haven't scored in your first 2 games, then pressure starts to build on you. So they have to recover at home to West Ham next weekend. Now on to the next question. Leicester City against Chelsea. Let me actually talk about that game, and then I'll move on to Norwich. So the other question regarding Chelsea was what's going on with Chelsea. So let me start by saying Chelsea played really well in that game early on. I felt that they could have been if they had taken their chances properly, I felt they really could have been 2 or 3-0 up. Like Giroud, his link-up play was really good. Jorginho was sending him balls early on. I think Pedro had one chance that he missed that he should have scored. But Giroud, his link-up play is world class. You know, he's a bit older now, but something he always was known for at Arsenal was his link-up play, and I'm not really that surprised to see him continuing it at Chelsea. He is really an underappreciated striker. There's a reason why he was there for France. He wasn't there for the goals. He just, the way he links up with his team, creates opportunity, passes of play. It's really good, and he should have had a few assists in that game. For Chelsea, they started out really well. Like, they got that early in goal after Ndidi. He held on to the ball for too long, and then Mason Mount scored. It was great seeing him, the 20-year-old kid, getting his first ever goal for Chelsea, especially after, you know, there's some criticism on him. I think Mourinho was apparently criticizing him after that 4-0 loss last weekend. But Chelsea, once again, started the game really well. Expansive football. They're playing really entertaining football. You can't lie about that. And I thought that they would comfortably go on to score a second, a third goal. But Leicester grew more and more into the game. James Maddison, he had a really good game. Like I said in the last episode, Leicester City, that midfield trio is really exciting to watch. Tielemans, Tielemans was kind of a game for him to forget, honestly, but Ndidi obviously making up for that error by scoring the heading goal. For some reason, I had a feeling he would score because he had a decent chance earlier in the game, as if I remember. I had a feeling that he would score the equalizer, that he would score later on, and you know, it was good to see him. It's always good I always like watching players make up for the error in the same game. There's just something satisfying about seeing that, and that's what Wilfred Ndidi did. He's also another really underrated midfielder, and it's going to be, like I said before, it's going to be a really big season for Leicester City because they've lost Harry Maguire, and I think the feeling now is that, especially after that performance where they played really well against Chelsea, where they were unlucky not to really win the game, especially later on, I think this is the season where the players feel that they can make a push for the top six. They have that nice young contingent group of players. Like I said, the midfield trio, all young players. They have Harvey Barnes, Ben Chilwell, Soyuncu. He played really well. I can't forget about him. He played really well alongside Johnny Evans. They have Ricardo Pereira. They have that group of young players who will look really attractive to other Premier League teams. And so I just have a feeling that Leicester really have to make the push this season to top six. Otherwise, they risk losing a lot of these players this summer, because this is the year for them. Chelsea, obviously, the midfield is lacking. The transfer ban really messed them up. Jorginho, I'm still not sure about him being a deep line playmaker there, because when he plays back there, he's not good enough to do the defensive work. So you need someone alongside him there, and that might like push Chelsea's attack when someone has to be, you know, constantly playing defense with Jorginho. That pushes Chelsea. That limits the amount of support that Chelsea's midfielders can provide to the wingers and the forwards. So I'm not sure that I had Chelsea finishing in the top six. I think I'm still going to stick with that, but you know, after that, if those sort of performances continue, then I'm not sure that it's going to end very well for Frank Lampard and co. Tammy Abraham came on. He just, you know, he didn't really look like himself, and it's going to be a tough one for Chelsea. But Leicester City, really encouraging stuff for them. That goal Ndidi scored, James Maddison and Jamie Vardy have almost like a telepathic relationship. Vardy is just so good at getting into these spaces. He's really good at getting into these spaces. He makes really good runs into the box. He's really underrated he's not just someone who's poaching or, you know, just speed sprinting. He's He's really good at finding spaces, and when you have a midfielder like James Maddison, who created the most chances in the Premier League last season, then it has the potential to create something really good. And then obviously Ayoze Perez can get goals as well. That's that. How do I rate Norwich? Well, Teemu Pukki, second hat-trick of the Premier League season, a 3-1 victory over Newcastle. Newcastle, obviously, they have their own problems. They really weren't showing up that day, but it was Todd Cantwell grabbed 2 assists as well. Tim Krul had a pretty solid game against his former side. It was a really good, really great day. This is a great time to be a Norwich City supporter. They had arguably their best season last year, finishing first in the Championship, playing a really good style of football under Daniel Farke, who came from Borussia Dortmund. He used to work with Jurgen Klopp, so it's not really that surprising that he kind of has a similar vibe to Jurgen Klopp's Dortmund and Liverpool side, where the players love playing for their manager. Jamal Lewis, Max Aarons, also youngsters that came from the academy, I believe. Going up to in the season, I think a lot of people had Norwich going down and Sheffield United, simply because a lot of them just don't know how they play. They're not familiar with the players. They don't have the rich pedigree that Aston Villa have. So naturally, they're going to be the first names that a lot of people will say will go down. But they played really well that day. Teemu Pukki obviously grabbing the hat-trick. Even in the game against Liverpool, I know they lost 4-1, but they started out really well. It's going to be a really interesting season for them. Where will they finish? Honestly, I can't really tell you. It's been only 2 games. It's too early to really start making judgments. But it was a great start for them. 3-1 victory. Todd Cantwell, Teemu Pukki, or Tim Krul, standout performers in that game against a depleted Newcastle side who I think Rafa Benitez has had them punching above their level for the past few years now, and Steve Bruce is not the type of guy who will be able to continue it. He found his level at Sheffield Wednesday. I was surprised that they even got Steve Bruce. I'm not sure exactly why they got him. Maybe it's because of the fact that he grew up as a Newcastle fan, so maybe they're hoping that, something would happen. But that didn't really work out when they got Kevin Keegan. But Newcastle, their woes continue. Let me get the next question. How do you rate Bournemouth Stars? Bournemouth, yeah, well, Bournemouth, they followed up that 1-1 draw at home to Sheffield United. They went to Villa Park and grabbed a convincing 2-1 lead. Harry Wilson on the score sheet. What a way to... I'm not even surprised that this guy scored another long-range goal. There was a stat saying that he scored more goals from outside of the box than any other player in English football since the start of last season. So he did it against while he was on loan at Derby County. He did it against United, and then he did it again at Southampton, I believe, in the FA Cup. So it's nothing surprising. But I actually read an interesting article on, once again, The Athletic. If you're looking for a really good a journalist, like a site to read football articles, The Athletic, I recommend you. It was really good. I had a free trial for I watch a lot of basketball, so I had a free trial last year for the basketball coverage, and it was really good. And then this year now they started covering UK football. They have a lot of experienced football writers and journalists who are there making articles for them. So it was a really good read. And something I found interesting was that apparently Ryan Fraser and Callum Wilson have had the highest combined goals assist combinations in the Premier League. Ryan Fraser and Callum Wilson assisted each other and assisted each other, and then vice versa, more than any other player in the Premier League last season, which is unbelievable. I think Ryan Fraser ended last season with 16 assists. He came from Aberdeen when Bournemouth were in League One, and now he's in the Premier League, continuing. That's just a testament to Eddie Howe's managerial ability. They plucked this guy from Aberdeen for peanuts probably back when they were in League One, and now he's just formed a bond with Callum Wilson that is unbelievable. And I think it was his pass to Callum Wilson that resulted in them winning the penalty, and then Josh King converted it from the spot. So it's going to be a really good season for them. Unfortunately, with David Brooks getting injured, we're not going to see the full potential of their attack. But I'm really a big fan of Harry Wilson, well known from Liverpool, a really good player on the ball, and obviously he's able to score a lot of long-range goals. So Bournemouth will be a really exciting team to watch this season. Once again, Eddie Howe. I like this group of young British. There's a lot of young British managers coming up. Eddie Howe, Graham Potter, Chris Wilder, Dean Smith. A lot of these are young. They've kind of taken over the old guard of Sam Allardyce, Alan Pardew, who are all kind of dinosaurs. These guys are out here to play football. They're not just here to play Route 1 football like Tony Pulis or Sean Dyche. These are people who want to be known for their style of play, and Eddie Howe is another one of those managers who pretty much exemplifies this. And on to the last questions. I'll answer a few more of these. Why is Mohamed Salah hated so much? Well, first of all, he plays for Liverpool. That's simple as that. Anyone who's a star player for Liverpool is going to receive a lot of banter, a lot of hate, and a lot of attention, because Liverpool, the most successful team in England, most trophies won in England, but they haven't won the Premier League title yet. So, and their fans are known for saying, every year, it's a running joke now, but their fans are known for saying, this is our year and all that. And when Salah had his breakthrough season where he was scoring for fun, people were saying, oh, this guy is so perfect. A lot of Liverpool fans were saying, oh, this guy's so perfect. He has this aura about him where it's impossible to hate him and all that. Such a humble guy. It wasn't just Liverpool fans who were saying this. It was even fans of other teams. And I think a lot of people were just disgruntled by the fact that a Liverpool player was receiving so much praise and all that stuff. Receiving all this perfect praise. And then his second season, obviously, it was always going to be hard for him to repeat what he did in this first Liverpool season. In his second year, he didn't grab as many goals. He went through a period of, I don't remember how many games without it. It was sometime during March-ish, February-ish, March-ish, where he went a period of games without scoring. And there'd be a lot of instances where he'd have the ball, and Sadio Mane or Firmino would be in a really good, especially Sadio Mane, would be in really good positions. And Salah could easily play them, and they would be in on goal or have a much better chance of scoring than Salah did. And Salah would hold on to the ball and would just fail to score. And so I think a lot of this just fueled the fire for people who were saying, oh, this guy's not so perfect. This guy's not so perfect, And no one's perfect. We're all human beings. I think a lot of it is also down to the fact that he went down in the box very easily, a lot of times last season. The game that sticks out for me was the one against Brighton and Hove Albion at their stadium down in Brighton. He went down very easily. I think it was, I don't know if I'd say it was a dive, because there was a bit of contact, but that was never, VAR would easily rule that out. It wasn't a penalty. It shouldn't have been a penalty. He scored, and then Liverpool won the game. And so, I remember that game, a lot of people were angry and saying they can't wait for VAR and all that. But when it comes down to is that he just, when you're a star player for Liverpool, you're going to receive a lot of attention. And it's when you make mistakes, and when you start showing, people are saying, oh, Salah's starting to show his true colors. He's not this humble guy anymore. When you kind of get back down to that human level, then people will be all over you. And so I think when you that's just one of the main reasons that Salah just receives a lot of heat. And yeah. Okay, I have 2 questions left. The first one is, which which under 21 player are you excited to see? And the last one is, will Sheffield United surprise us? Okay, let me start with the Sheffield United one, because that's how it's more related to the Premier League. But Sheffield United, honestly, I'm being honest right now, I didn't know much about them going into the season. Like, I remember watching them in 2007 when they were in the Premier League. One of the standout moments of that season was, I remember Phil Jagielka subbing in in net against Arsenal in their 1-0 win at Bramall Lane. It was around Boxing Day, and they won that game 1-0. I think I want to say he saved a penalty in that game. I'm not sure yet. I was a kid, so I don't really remember. But nonetheless, it was good to see them back in the Premier League. Sheffield's one of the largest cities in the UK, so it's only right that they have a team representing them in the top flight of football. But something I read about them, their overlapping center backs, that was something that I was constantly hearing people talk about. I had never watched them. I'd only watched like one game of them in the Championship, and it was a while ago, so I didn't really, last season, so I didn't really take into account the overlapping center backs. But we saw it at Crystal Palace for their goal. Actually, one of the center backs, I don't remember who, but he went out on the wing, and he was involved in the passage of play that eventually led to Lundstrom scoring against Crystal Palace in their victory. So it's clear that the manager Chris Wilder isn't afraid to use this overlapping center back stuff, this philosophy in the Premier League, and they have a really good team. They have Callum Robinson up front. He's from Preston. They have these group of guys who a lot of people don't know, but they worked really well together. And so, a lot of people had them getting relegated simply, like I said, because of the fact that they don't know a lot about Sheffield United. They're not as big of a club as Aston Villa, so it's only natural that people would say, oh, they're gonna go down. They don't have a star man. They don't have a big guy. Like, even Norwich has like Timu Pukki. But Sheffield United, who's really the star man? You know what I mean? So it's going to be really interesting to watch these group of players this season, and it's a great start for them. Obviously, unbeaten in their first 2 games, great start, and we'll see what happens in the future. Sorry, and now on to the next question. Which U21 player are you most excited to see this season? For me, it's definitely Joao Felix. Like, to end this on the podcast, we'll talk about him. I remember when Atletico Madrid signed him for £100-something million from Benfica. I was like, damn, that opened my eyes. Like, I was not expecting that. Yeah, he's a great player. I still don't think he's worth that much money, but the thing is, like I said about Harry Maguire, you have to think in the bigger picture. If Atletico Madrid don't get him, then someone else will. And so they're willing to overspend to stop another team from getting him before they do. And what he provides, like, this guy, he really has a high ceiling. I don't think that the media should put too much pressure on him, because I think he's only 19 years old, but he has a really big future. I saw his run in the first game, I think it was against Getafe. He made an amazing run into the box, all the way from the center of the pitch. He won a penalty. Even in the preseason against MLS All-Stars, this guy played really well. And then also against Real Madrid, it was just incredible. This guy is such a good player to watch. He has a really bright future. I'm excited to see what he does this season for Atletico Madrid. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the podcast. Like I said earlier, there's not going to be a podcast next weekend. This is the last one of the month, because next weekend I'll be watching Arsenal versus Liverpool at my local bar, which is actually an Arsenal sponsored bar, so there'll be a lot of Arsenal fans there. I'm going to try filming it, and I'm going to try recording like just the scenes and the vibe. I'm just going to record it on my channel, and that'll be the podcast instead, I guess. But yeah, thanks for everyone once again who's been supporting the page. If you're listening to this, like, subscribe to my page, and also follow me on Instagram at epl.kingdom. And that's it for today. See ya.